Document, Part 1. Deep in the cold, dark silence of Europa, where the sun's light barely reached and the icy surface stretched endlessly, something stirred. It was faint at first, a low hum, like the whisper of a machine waking from a long sleep. The sound echoed through an ancient chamber buried deep beneath layers of ice, untouched for centuries. Inside this forgotten vault, a figure lay motionless on a platform that glowed with a faint blue light. Tubes and wires connected to his arms and chest pulsed rhythmically, as though keeping him alive or perhaps holding him in stasis. The man lying there was unlike any ordinary human. His body looked strong, built for endurance and power, but his face carried no expression. His eyes were closed, yet even in stillness, there was something unsettling about him. Around him, walls covered in strange symbols and diagrams told stories of experiments, of trials and failures. This place had been abandoned long ago, left behind when its creators decided it was too dangerous to continue their work. But now, after years of silence, something or someone had awakened, far above. On the frozen surface of Europa, a small team of explorers moved cautiously across the icy terrain. They wore thick suits designed to protect them from the extreme cold, their helmets reflecting the dim glow of distant stars. Among them was Claire Bennett, a young scientist with a sharp mind and a restless curiosity. She had joined this expedition, hoping to uncover secrets hidden beneath the ice, clues to humanity's past before the rise of the Galactic Empire. The Empire ruled with an iron fist, crushing dissent and demanding loyalty. But Claire believed there were answers out there, answers that could change everything. As the group worked to clear away debris, blocking an entrance to what appeared to be an underground structure, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that they were close to something extraordinary. Her tools buzzed softly as she scanned the area, searching for signs of technology or life. Finally, her scanner picked up a signal, a faint energy reading coming from deep below. Excited, she called over the others, and together they began digging through the ice. Hours later, they broke through into a vast chamber. The air inside was stale but breathable, and the soft glow of the platform illuminated the space. Claire stepped closer, her heart racing as she took in the sight of the man lying there. He didn't look like a statue or a corpse. He seemed alive. Carefully, she examined the controls surrounding the platform, trying to make sense of the alien technology. After some trial and error, she managed to activate a sequence that caused the glowing lights to brighten. Slowly, the man's eyes fluttered open. At first, he didn't move. His gaze darted around the room, taking in his surroundings without speaking. Claire held her breath, unsure whether he was friend or foe. "Hello?" she said softly, stepping back slightly just in case. "Can you hear me?" The man blinked, then turned his head toward her voice. His eyes were sharp, almost unnervingly so, and they locked onto hers with intensity. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, in a voice rough from disuse, he asked, "Where am I?" Claire hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "You're on Europa," she replied carefully. "We found you here, in this chamber. Do you remember anything? Who are you?" The man frowned, his brow furrowing as if trying to recall something. "Just out of reach. I don't know," he admitted finally. "I can't remember." He sat up slowly, disconnecting himself from the tubes and wires attached to his body. To Claire's surprise, he showed no signs of weakness or confusion, despite having been asleep for who knows how long. If anything, he seemed stronger than an average person, his movements fluid and precise. "My name is Claire," she offered, hoping to ease the tension. "We're explorers. We came here looking for, well, we weren't sure what we'd find, but you're definitely not what we expected." The man nodded, though his expression remained guarded. "Ethan," he said after a pause. "That's my name. At least, I think it is." Claire smiled faintly, relieved to have made some progress. "Ethan," she repeated. "Okay, Ethan. Let's start with the basics. How do you feel? Are you hurt? Ethan shook his head. No, I'm fine. He glanced down at his hands, clenching and unclenching his fists, as if testing his strength. But I don't understand. Why am I here? What is this place? Claire sighed, knowing she wouldn't have all the answers. I wish I could tell you more, but we're still figuring things out ourselves. From what we've seen so far, this looks like some kind of lab or maybe a prison. Those symbols on the walls might hold clues, but we'll need time to decipher them. Ethan stood up, towering over Claire despite her being of average height. His presence was imposing, yet there was also a quiet vulnerability about him. He looked around the chamber again, his eyes lingering on the diagrams etched into the walls. Something about them seemed familiar, though he couldn't say why. This isn't natural, he murmured. Whatever this is, it was made by humans, but not ordinary humans. Claire nodded. That's what I thought too. Whoever built this place had access to advanced technology, maybe even beyond what the Empire has today. The Empire, Ethan echoed, frowning. What Empire? Claire hesitated, realizing how much he didn't know. The Galactic Empire, she explained. They control most of known space now. Their rule is harsh, and anyone who opposes them usually ends up dead or worse. My team and I are part of a resistance movement trying to fight back, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. Ethan absorbed this information silently. The idea of an empire ruling over humanity sparked something deep within him, though he couldn't explain why. It felt wrong, unnatural, like a violation of some fundamental truth. And do you think I can help? He asked finally. I don't know, Claire admitted, but you're clearly not ordinary. Whatever this place was meant to do, it created you for a reason. Maybe that reason is still important. Before Ethan could respond, a loud rumble echoed through the chamber. The ground shook slightly, causing everyone to brace themselves. What was that? One of the other explorers shouted, panic creeping into his voice. Claire quickly checked her scanner. Something's happening outside, she said. We need to leave. Now, Ethan didn't argue. Whatever doubts he had about his identity or purpose, he knew one thing for certain. Staying here wasn't an option. As they hurried toward the exit, he couldn't shake the feeling that his awakening wasn't a coincidence. Somewhere out there, forces were at play, forces that might already be hunting him. And as much as he wanted answers, he suspected the road ahead would be anything but easy. End of document. Document. Part 2. The journey back to the surface was tense and hurried. The rumbling beneath their feet had grown louder, shaking loose chunks of ice that tumbled down around them. Claire led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she navigated the narrow tunnels. Behind her, Ethan moved with surprising ease, his steps steady despite the uneven ground. The other members of the team followed closely, their breaths visible in the freezing air. Everyone was silent, focused only on escaping whatever danger was closing in. When they finally emerged onto the icy surface, the sight that greeted them was alarming. In the distance, a massive crack had formed across the horizon, splitting the ice like a jagged scar. Steam rose from the fissure, hinting at geothermal activity far below. But it wasn't just the shifting landscape that worried them, it was the faint hum of engines growing louder in the sky above. A shadow passed over them as a sleek, black ship descended, its shape unmistakably imperial. They found us. One of the explorers whispered, panic edging into his voice. Claire cursed, under her breath. How did they track us here? She muttered, gripping her scanner tightly. She glanced at Ethan, who stood motionless, staring up at the approaching vessel. His expression was unreadable, but there was a tension in his stance as if he were ready to spring into action at any moment. We need to move, Claire urged, turning to the group. If we can reach the rover, we might have a chance. Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he continued watching the ship, his sharp eyes narrowing slightly. Something about it felt familiar, though he couldn't say why. It was as if a memory was trying to surface, but it remained just out of reach. Finally, he nodded and turned to follow Claire, moving quickly across the slippery terrain. The rover was parked a short distance away, partially hidden behind a ridge of ice. As they ran toward it, the Imperial ship hovered closer, its searchlight sweeping across the barren landscape. The explorers ducked low, shielding themselves from view. But Ethan remained upright, seemingly unconcerned about being seen. Claire grabbed his arm and pulled him down beside her. "Stay low," she hissed. "Do you want them to spot us?" Ethan glanced at her, then back at the ship. "Why are they here?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Claire admitted. "But it's not good. If they catch you, especially, you were dead." Her words struck a chord within him. Though he still struggled to piece together his past, he understood one thing clearly. He was different, and being different in a world ruled by the Empire meant being a target. He nodded again and crouched lower, following Claire's lead. As they reached the rover. Once inside, the group wasted no time starting the engine. The vehicle roared to life, its treads grinding against the ice as it sped away from the Imperial ship. Behind them, the vessel began firing warning shots, bright beams of energy searing through the air. One blast struck nearby, sending shards of ice flying in all directions. Claire gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white as she pushed the rover to its limits. Ethan sat silently in the passenger seat, his gaze fixed on the chaos unfolding outside. He could feel his heart pounding, not out of fear, but out of something else. Anticipation, anger, he wasn't sure. All he knew was that the presence of the Empire stirred something primal within him, a desire to fight back that he couldn't fully explain. After several minutes of evasive driving, the group managed to put some distance between themselves and the Imperial ship. They took refuge in a shallow cave, parking the rover just inside the entrance. Exhausted but alive, they huddled together to assess their situation. "What do they want with us?" one of the explorers asked, his voice trembling. "We're just scientists. We haven't done anything wrong." "It's not us they're after," Claire said grimly, glancing at Ethan. "It's him." All eyes turned to Ethan, who met their stares without flinching. "Why me?" he asked, his tone calm but firm. Claire hesitated before answering. "Because whoever built that chamber and created you was working for the Empire. Or at least, someone connected to them. That technology isn't something just anyone could develop. You're special, and they'll stop at nothing to get you back." Ethan absorbed this information silently, his mind racing. Special. The word echoed in his thoughts, stirring fragments of memories he couldn't quite grasp. Images flashed in his mind, a laboratory filled with people in white coats, machines humming with power, and voices shouting orders. Then came the pain, sharp and overwhelming, followed by darkness. He clenched his fists, forcing the memories away. Whatever had happened to him, it wasn't something he wanted to relive. So, what do we do now? Another explorer asked nervously. "We can't keep running forever." "We head to the rebel base," Claire decided. "They'll know what to do. If anyone can help us figure out what's going on, and how to deal with him, they can." The mention of rebels caught Ethan's attention. "Rebels," he repeated, his brow furrowing. "You said earlier that you're part of a resistance movement. What exactly does that mean?" Claire sighed, realizing she owed him an explanation. "The Empire rules through fear and oppression," she began. "They crush anyone who opposes them, whether it's entire planets or individual dissidents. The rebels are groups of people fighting back, trying to overthrow the Empire and restore freedom to humanity. We've been struggling for years, but we're outnumbered and outgunned. We need something or someone to turn the tide in our favor." Ethan listened intently, his expression unreadable. "And you think I'm that someone?" he stated flatly. "I don't know," Claire admitted. "But you're not ordinary. Whatever those people did to you, they made you stronger, faster, maybe even smarter than the rest of us. If we can figure out how to harness that, if we can understand who you really Rue might be able to help us." For a moment, Ethan didn't respond. He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers, as if testing their strength. Deep down, he felt a flicker of doubt. Was he truly capable of helping these people? Or was he just a weapon, destined to cause destruction wherever he went? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he pushed it aside. For now, he had no choice but to trust Claire and her team. "Fine," he said finally. "Take me to your base. But if I find out you're lying to me—" "You won't," Claire interrupted firmly. "I promise." With that, the group climbed back into the rover and set off once more. The journey to the rebel base was long and arduous, taking them across treacherous terrain and through areas patrolled by Imperial forces. Along the way, Claire shared more details about the rebellion and the Empire's oppressive regime. She spoke of colonies enslaved, families torn apart, and countless lives lost in the name of conquest. Each story deepened Ethan's resolve, though he still struggled to reconcile his newfound purpose with the fragmented memories haunting him. Finally, after hours of travel, they arrived at their destination, hidden within a dense asteroid field. The rebel base was a sprawling complex carved into the rock. Ships of various sizes docked at makeshift ports, while armed guards patrolled the perimeter. As the rover approached, a gate slid open, allowing them entry. Inside, the atmosphere was chaotic, but determined. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged vessels, while strategists pored over maps and data. Fighters trained in makeshift arenas, honing their skills for battles yet to come. Despite the hardships, there was a sense of unity among the rebels, a shared belief that freedom was worth fighting for. Claire led Ethan and the others to a central command room, where a man named Daniel Hayes awaited them. Tall and broad-shouldered, with graying hair and a weathered face, Daniel exuded authority. He greeted Claire warmly before turning his attention to Ethan, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "So this is him," Daniel said, his voice low and measured. "The prototype." "Yes," Claire confirmed. "His name is Ethan. He doesn't remember much, but he's willing to help us if we can figure out how." Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving Ethan. "Help us against the Empire," he clarified. "That's what you're saying." "That's right," Ethan replied evenly. "But I need answers first. Who am I? What was I made for? And why does the Empire want me so badly?" Daniel exchanged a glance with Claire before speaking. "Those are questions we'd all like answered. But until we can dig deeper into your past, you'll have to prove yourself. Trust isn't given freely here, it's earned." Ethan met Daniel's stare unflinchingly. "Then tell me what I need to do." Daniel smirked faintly, impressed by Ethan's determination. "Follow me," he said, leading the way out of the command room. "Let's see what you're really capable of." As they walked, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being tested, not just by Daniel, but by everyone around him. The rebels watched him warily, whispering amongst themselves as he passed. Some seemed hopeful, while others appeared fearful. Ethan ignored their stares, focusing instead on the task ahead. Whatever challenges lay before him, he was ready to face them head-on. Little did he know, his arrival would change everything for better or worse. End of document. Document. Part 3. Daniel led Ethan through the rebel base, his boots echoing against the metal floors. The corridors were narrow and dimly lit, filled with the hum of machinery and the distant chatter of rebels going about their tasks. Claire followed close behind, her presence a small comfort to Ethan as he navigated this unfamiliar environment. Despite the chaos around him, Ethan walked with purpose, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. He could feel the weight of Daniel's scrutiny, but he didn't let it show. If anything, he welcomed the challenge. They arrived at what appeared to be a training area, a large open space, lined with weapons racks and combat dummies. Rebels practiced nearby, sparring and firing simulated rounds at targets. The air smelled faintly of sweat and gunpowder. Daniel stopped near the center of the room and turned to face Ethan. "This is where we'll see what you're made of," Daniel said, crossing his arms. "You claim you can help us, but talk is cheap. Actions matter." Ethan nodded, unfazed by the challenge. "What do you want me to do?" Daniel gestured toward a group of rebels standing nearby. "First, we test your combat skills. Pick a partner anyone here and fight them. No weapons, just hand to hand. Show us what you've got." The rebels exchanged nervous glances, unsure who would step forward. Finally, a tall, muscular man named Kyle volunteered. He cracked his knuckles and stepped into the center of the room, sizing Ethan up with a confident smirk. To the others, Kyle was one of the best fighters in the base, a seasoned warrior with years of experience. But Ethan didn't seem intimidated. Instead, he simply stood there, waiting for Kyle to make the first move. When the fight began, it was over almost as quickly as it started. Kyle lunged at Ethan, aiming for a punch that would have knocked most people off their feet. But Ethan sidestepped effortlessly, grabbing Kyle's arm and using his momentum to throw him to the ground. Before Kyle could recover, Ethan pinned him down with surprising speed and precision. The entire exchange took less than 10 seconds. A stunned silence fell over the room. Kyle scrambled to his feet, looking both embarrassed and awestruck. "That was fast," he muttered, rubbing his shoulder. Daniel raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "Not bad," he admitted, "but that's just the beginning. Let's see how you handle weapons." He handed Ethan a blaster rifle, pointing to a series of moving targets set up at the far end of the room. "Hit those," he instructed, "and don't waste shots." Ethan examined the weapon briefly, its design unfamiliar, yet instinctively easy to understand. He raised the rifle, steadying his aim as the targets began shifting erratically. Without hesitation, he fired a rapid succession of precise shots that struck each target dead center. When the last one fell, the room erupted into murmurs of disbelief. "How did he do that?" someone whispered. "It's like he's done this before." Claire watched silently, pride flickering across her face. She had suspected Ethan was special, but seeing his abilities firsthand confirmed it. Still, she couldn't ignore the unease creeping into the back of her mind. Was he too powerful? Too dangerous? She pushed the thoughts aside, reminding herself that they needed him if they were going to stand a chance against the Empire. Daniel approached Ethan, his expression unreadable. "You're good," he said finally. "Better than anyone I've seen in a long time. But skill alone won't win this war. We need loyalty, trust, and discipline. Can you give us that?" Ethan met his gaze steadily. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he replied. "I want answers, and I want to help. That's all." Daniel studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "Fine. You'll join our next mission. It's a high-risk operation in infiltration of an Imperial outpost orbiting Jupiter. We've been planning it for weeks, but we haven't had the manpower to pull it off. Maybe you'll tip the scales in our favor." Claire stepped forward, concern etched on her face. "Are you sure about this?" she asked Daniel. "He just woke up yesterday. He doesn't know anything about USO or our tactics." "He proved himself," Daniel countered. "Besides, we don't have time to wait. If we don't hit them soon, they'll come after us again, and next time, they might bring more than just scouts." Claire hesitated, glancing at Ethan. He gave her a reassuring nod, though his own doubts lingered beneath the surface. He didn't fully trust these people yet, but he understood the stakes. Whatever the Empire wanted with him, it wasn't good. Joining the mission was the only way to learn more and, perhaps find a way to stop them. "All right," Daniel said, addressing the group. "We leave in 12 hours. Get ready." Later that evening, Ethan found himself alone in a quiet corner of the base. The adrenaline from the tests had worn off, leaving him restless and uneasy. Memories continued to surface, fragments of his past piecing together in ways that made little sense. He saw flashes of sterile labs, heard echoes of voices shouting orders, felt the sting of needles piercing his skin. Each memory brought a wave of anger, a burning desire to confront whoever had done this to him. As he sat there, lost in thought, Claire approached cautiously. She carried 2 cups of steaming liquid, offering one to him. "Here," she said softly. "It's coffee. Not great, but it helps keep you awake." Ethan accepted the cup, nodding in thanks. "Why are you helping me?" he asked after a moment. "You barely know me." Claire smiled faintly, sitting down beside him. Adriatic green eyes met his, filled with a mix of determination and compassion. "Because I believe in second chances," she replied. "And because I think you're exactly what we need to take down the Empire. You're strong, smart, and capable of things none of us can even imagine. But you're also human, at least. I think you are. That makes you worth fighting for." Her words struck a chord within him, stirring emotions he hadn't felt in a long time. For years, maybe decades, he had been nothing more than a tool, a weapon designed for destruction. Now, for the first time, someone was treating him like a person. It was a strange feeling, one he wasn't sure how to process. "What happens if I fail?" he asked quietly. "If I lose control or worse, turn on you?" Claire hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Then we deal with it," she said. "But I don't think that'll happen. You've had plenty of opportunities to hurt us, and you haven't. That tells me you're not the monster they made you out to be." Ethan looked away, staring into the distance. "I hope you're right," he murmured. The next morning, the team gathered in the hangar bay, preparing for the mission. Their ship, a battered but functional transport vessel, awaited them on the launch pad. Rebels bustled about, loading supplies and running final checks. Tension hung thick in the air, a reminder of the danger they were about to face. Daniel addressed the group, his voice firm and commanding. "This is it," he said. "Our intel says the outpost is lightly guarded, but don't let that fool you. The Empire doesn't leave anything unprotected. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and we'll get through this." Ethan stood quietly among the rebels, listening intently. Though he still felt like an outsider, he couldn't deny the sense of camaraderie surrounding him. These people were risking everything to fight for freedom, and now, so was he. As the ship lifted off, Ethan gazed out the window at the stars, stretching endlessly beyond. Somewhere out there, the Empire waited for him, for revenge, for domination. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. Whatever came next, he was ready. End of document. Document. Part 4. The journey to the Imperial outpost was tense and quiet. The ship's engines hummed softly as it drifted through the vast emptiness of space, heading toward Jupiter's orbit. Inside, the rebels prepared themselves for the mission ahead. Weapons were checked, plans reviewed, and last-minute adjustments made. Ethan sat apart from the others, his presence both calming and unsettling. He didn't speak much, preferring instead to observe the team and absorb every detail of their strategy. Claire approached him, her expression a mix of determination and worry. "You okay?" she asked, sitting down beside him. Ethan nodded slowly. "I'm fine," he replied. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Everything," he admitted. "This empire you keep talking about there, the ones who created me, aren't they? Or at least, someone working for them did." Claire hesitated before answering. "Probably," she said carefully. "We don't know for sure, but it makes sense. Whoever built that chamber on Europa had access to advanced technology only the Empire could afford." Ethan clenched his fists briefly, then relaxed them. "And now they're coming. After me." "Why? What do they want?" Claire shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it can't be good. That's why we need to stay ahead of them to find out what they're planning and stop them before they use you or anyone else for their own gain." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He stared out the window at the distant glow of Jupiter, its swirling storms a reminder of how small and fragile humanity truly was. Despite his strength and abilities, he felt a strange vulnerability of fear of becoming exactly what the Empire intended him to be, a weapon of destruction. "We'll get through this," Claire said firmly, breaking the silence. Together, Ethan glanced at her, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. "Thanks," he murmured. "I hope you're right." When they arrived at the outpost, it loomed above them like a mechanical beast. Its surface bristled with turrets and sensors, designed to detect any intruder foolish enough to approach. The rebels cloaked their ship, masking its heat signature and electromagnetic emissions as they maneuvered into position. From there, they would dock at a maintenance bay used for resupplying smaller vessels. Daniel gave the final briefing as the team suited up. "Remember," he said, his voice low but firm, "we go in quiet. Disable the guards, sabotage the systems, and extract intel. If things go south, we fall back to the rendezvous point. No heroics." Ethan listened closely, committing every word to memory. Though he still felt like an outsider, he understood the importance of teamwork. These people were counting on him, and he wasn't about to let them down. As they disembarked, the cold air of the outpost hit them like a wall. The maintenance bay was dimly lit, its corners shrouded in shadow. The team moved quickly and silently, weapons drawn but not yet fired. Their goal was to avoid detection for as long as possible. Ethan took point, his heightened senses alert for any sign of danger. He spotted 2 guards patrolling the area, and signaled the others to hold back. Without hesitation, he closed the distance between himself and the first guard, disarming him with a swift motion and rendering him unconscious with a single blow. The second guard barely had time to react before Ethan subdued him as well. The rebels exchanged impressed glances, their respect for Ethan growing with each passing moment. They continued onward, following a map displayed on Claire's wrist device. The plan was simple: disable the power grid, create chaos, and retrieve data stored in the outpost's central server. Things went smoothly at first. They reached the control room without incident, and Daniel set to work overriding security protocols while Claire uploaded a virus designed to cripple the outpost's systems. Ethan stood watch, his sharp eyes scanning the corridors for any sign of trouble. But trouble came sooner than expected. A sudden alarm blared through the outpost, red lights flashing as automated defenses sprang to life. "They know we're here," one of the rebels shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Keep moving," Daniel barked, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "We're almost done." Ethan stepped forward, positioning himself between the team and the approaching threat. A squad of Imperial soldiers rounded the corner, their weapons trained on the intruders. Without waiting for orders, Ethan charged at them, moving faster than anyone thought possible. He dodged laser fire with ease, closing the distance in seconds. His movements were precise and efficient, disabling each soldier with minimal effort. The rebels watched in awe as Ethan cleared the hallway, leaving a trail of incapacitated enemies behind him. "Whoa," Kyle muttered under his breath. "He really is a prototype. Focus," Claire snapped, snapping everyone back to reality. "We're not out of this yet." Moments later, Daniel finished uploading the virus. "Done," he announced. "Let's move." The team retreated quickly, retracing their steps toward the maintenance bay. Along the way, Ethan continued to lead the charge, neutralizing threats and ensuring the group stayed safe. But as they neared their exit, disaster struck. An Imperial officer appeared, blocking their path. She was tall and imposing, her uniform adorned with medals and insignias marking her rank. Her piercing gaze locked onto Ethan, and a smug smile crossed her face. Well, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "If it isn't our lost project." You've caused quite a stir, haven't you? Ethan froze, his body tensing as recognition sparked within him. This woman, her name was Catherine Lane, was part of his fragmented memories. She had overseen experiments, given orders, watched as scientists pushed him to his limits. And now, she stood before him, unafraid and unrepentant. You, Ethan, growled his voice low and dangerous. What did you do to me? Catherine chuckled, raising her weapon. Oh, my dear boy, we didn't do anything you weren't designed for. You were always meant to be a weapon, a perfect killing machine. We just improved upon nature. Her words ignited a fire within Ethan, anger surging through him like a tidal wave. He lunged at her, but she sidestepped, firing a shot that grazed his shoulder. Pain flared, but it only fueled his rage further. He tackled her to the ground, pinning her beneath him. You'll pay for what you've done, he snarled, his grip tightening around her wrists. Catherine smirked, unfazed by his fury. You think this changes anything? You're still ours, Ethan. Always have been, always will be. Before he could respond, Claire intervened, pulling him away. We don't have time for this, she urged. More troops are coming. Reluctantly, Ethan released Catherine, though his glare promised retribution. The team fled, reaching the ship just as reinforcements arrived. As they lifted off, explosions rocked the outpost below, the virus wreaking havoc on its systems. Inside the ship, the rebels cheered, celebrating their victory. But Ethan remained silent, his mind racing. Catherine's words echoed in his head, taunting him with truths he couldn't deny. He had been created to kill, engineered to serve the Empire's dark ambitions. Yet, somehow, he had broken free and, now, he had chosen a different path. As the ship sailed away from the crumbling outpost, Ethan gazed out the window once more. The stars stretched endlessly beyond, offering no answers but plenty of questions. Who was he, really? Was he a monster, destined to destroy? Or was he something more? For now, all he knew was that he had allies, people who believed in him despite his origins. And as long as he had that, he could keep fighting, keep resisting, keep searching for a future worth living for. End of document. Document, Part 5. Back at the rebel base, the mood was a mix of triumph and unease. The mission had been a success. They had crippled the Imperial outpost and retrieved valuable data, but Ethan's encounter with Catherine Lane left everyone unsettled. Her words lingered in the air, casting a shadow over their victory. If what she said was true, then Ethan wasn't just a prototype. He was a weapon designed for destruction. The rebels couldn't help but wonder if bringing him into their ranks had been a mistake. Ethan retreated to a quiet corner of the base, avoiding the others as much as possible. He didn't want to face their questions or their fear. The wound on his shoulder throbbed faintly, a reminder of the confrontation with Catherine. But it wasn't the physical pain that troubled him most. It was her voice, her smug certainty. Her claim that he belonged to the Empire no matter how far he ran. Those words burrowed deep into his mind, stirring memories he had tried so hard to bury. Claire found him sitting alone, staring at the floor with a distant look in his eyes. She hesitated before approaching, unsure whether he wanted company. Hey, she said softly, taking a seat beside him. How are you holding up? Ethan glanced at her, his expression unreadable. I don't know, he admitted after a moment. Everything she said, it felt real. Like pieces of me I've forgotten are coming back. Claire nodded slowly, her heart aching for him. Do you remember anything specific? Anything that might help us understand who you are? What they did to you? Ethan closed his eyes, trying to focus. Fragments of memory surfaced, disjointed and hazy. He saw rows of pods, like the one he'd been found in, each containing other prototypes. Scientists in white coats scribbled notes while machines monitored vital signs. Orders barked over intercoms, pain, so much pain. Needles, shocks, tests, pushed to the brink of endurance. And always, Catherine's face, watching from behind glass panels, her cold smile never wavering. They tested me, Ethan said finally, his voice low and strained. Pushed me to my limits. Made me stronger, faster, smarter. But it wasn't just about improving me. It was about control. They wanted something they could use however they wanted. Claire listened silently, her stomach twisting with anger and pity. That doesn't make you a monster, she said firmly. You're not responsible for what they did to you. What matters is what you choose to do now. Ethan shook his head, frustration creeping into his tone. But what if I can't choose? What if everything they did's still inside me, waiting to take over? You're here, aren't you? Claire countered. You chose to help us. You saved lives today. That proves you're more than whatever they made you. Her words offered some comfort, but Ethan still felt the weight of doubt pressing down on him. He stood abruptly, pacing the room as though movement might clear. His thoughts? I need answers, he said. Not just about me, but about them. About this empire. If I'm going to fight them, I need to know what I'm up against. Claire rose to join him, her determination matching his own. Then let's find those answers together. The next morning, Claire led Ethan to a secure lab deep within the base. It was a small, cluttered space filled with computers, scanners, and shelves stacked with files and equipment. A young technician named Ryan was already there, typing furiously at a terminal. When he saw them enter, he straightened up, brushing a strand of dark hair out of his face. I've been going through the data we pulled from the outpost, Ryan explained. There's a lot to sift through, but I think I found something important. He gestured for them to come closer, pulling up a series of documents on the screen. They were labeled Project Titan, accompanied by diagrams, schematics, and detailed reports. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he recognized some of the images: pods, machines, experiments. This was where he had come from. What is this? Claire asked, scanning the files quickly. It's a classified project, Ryan replied. Started decades ago under the Empire's research division. The goal was to create super soldiers, humans engineered to be stronger, smarter, and more resilient than ordinary people. But there's a catch. He paused, his expression grim. Most of the prototypes failed. Some went insane. Others became too violent to control. Only a handful survived, and even fewer were deemed stable enough to keep alive. Ethan leaned closer, his sharp eyes scanning the text. One line stood out. Asterisk, Subject EO1, Enhanced Combat Capabilities Confirmed. Psychological Conditioning Incomplete. Asterisk below it was a photo, a younger version of himself, lying unconscious in a pod identical to the one he'd awakened in. That's you, Claire whispered, pointing at the image. Your subject, EO1. Ethan stared at the photo, his chest tightening. It was strange to see himself like that, lifeless, vulnerable, completely at the mercy of the people who had created him. For a moment, he felt trapped again, confined to that sterile chamber with no freedom and no choices. Then Claire's hand touched his arm gently, grounding him in the present. We'll figure this out, she promised. Whatever they did to you, we'll undo it. You're not alone anymore. Ethan nodded, though uncertainty still lingered in his eyes. What about the others? He asked. The ones who didn't survive, or the ones who went insane? What happened to them? Ryan hesitated, glancing at the screen. According to these files, the failures were disposed of, terminated. As for the unstable subjects, he trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. They were kept alive for further study, but under heavy containment. The Empire didn't want to waste resources shutting down the entire project. Ethan clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. These weren't just numbers or statistics, they were people, like him, created, used, and discarded without a second thought. And me, he asked tightly. Why did they abandon me? Maybe they thought you were a failure too, Ryan suggested. Or maybe they lost interest when the project got shut down. Either way, they left you there to rot. But they came back, Ethan muttered. They found me again. Claire frowned, thinking back to the Imperial ship that had tracked them on Europa. They must have realized you're still functional, she said. And now they want you back. For what? Ethan demanded. To finish what they started. Possibly, Claire admitted. But we won't let that happen. Not while we're still breathing. Later that night, Ethan wandered the base, unable to sleep. His mind raced with questions and fears, each one more overwhelming than the last. Was he truly free, or was he still bound by the Empire's designs? Could he trust himself to remain in control, or would the violence they had instilled in him eventually consume him? As he passed the training area, he noticed Kyle practicing alone, punching a combat dummy with fierce intensity. Ethan stopped, watching silently. Despite their earlier tension, Kyle seemed different, now less suspicious, more accepting. Maybe it was because Ethan had proven himself during the mission, or maybe it was because they shared a common enemy. Kyle spotted him and paused, wiping sweat from his brow. Couldn't sleep either, he asked, tossing a towel over his shoulder. Ethan shook his head. Too much on my mind. Kyle nodded, understanding. Yeah, I get that. Sometimes it feels like the weight of the whole damn galaxy is on our shoulders. Ethan stepped closer, curiosity getting the better of him. Why do you fight? Against the Empire, I mean. Kyle shrugged, leaning against the wall. Because I have to. Because if I don't, who will? My family, they lived on a colony the Empire wiped out. Whole planet gone in a day. I barely escaped. After that, I knew I couldn't just sit around and wait for them to come after me again. Ethan absorbed his words, feeling a flicker of kinship. He didn't have a family to avenge, but he understood the drive to resist a stand against oppression, no matter the cost. Do you ever wonder if it's worth it? He asked quietly. If we can really win? All the time, Kyle admitted, with a wry smile. But giving up isn't an option. Neither is letting them win. So yeah, it's worth it. Even if we lose, at least we'll go down fighting. For the first time in days, Ethan felt a spark of hope. Maybe he didn't have all the answers yet. Maybe he never would. But as long as he kept moving forward, kept resisting, he could shape his own destiny. He wasn't just a prototype or a weapon. He was a person with choices, flaws, and the power to change things. Thanks, Ethan said, offering Kyle a rare smile. I needed to hear that. Kyle grinned back, clapping him on the shoulder. Anytime, man. Now, you wanna spar? You look like you could use the distraction. Ethan chuckled, nodding. Sure, let's do it. As they squared off, trading blows and testing each other's skills, Ethan felt a sense of clarity wash over him. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. The Empire would keep coming, and the shadows of his past would haunt him every step of the way. But for now, surrounded by allies who believed in him, he felt ready to face whatever came next. End of document.